Hey, this is Andy XL back with another NFXL podcast, and in this is going to be part two of my Week 10 preview. So let's start with the Sunday game in Berlin between the Atlanta Falcons and the Indianapolis Colts. Excuse me. The Falcons are pretty close to being in must-win territory now from where they are in the standings, ahead of this nominal road game against the Colts, who themselves need to bounce back from their second loss of the season in Week 9 if they are to push on in the division and push for top seeding in the AFC postseason bracket. The Colts offense statistically ranks in the top 10 for pass and run, but has lent on Jonathan Taylor to get in the end zone more often than not, and that's been a modus operandi that's worked well for him. The Falcons' D is top ranked in the league in terms of pass defense yardage, but does concede touchdowns through the air, whereas the opposite is the case against the run, where they give up yardage but not touchdowns. So on that basis, you might think Jonathan Taylor is going to go for plenty of yardage in this game, but can he get in the red zone would be the big question. Offensively for the Falcons, they have a decent enough passing game, but Bijan Robinson is maybe the one they need to have a big game here, as usual, for the Falcons to win. And that could be tough against the top five ranked Colts defense, with starting left guard Matthew Bergeron out and right guard Chris Lindstrom questionable for this game. That won't help their efforts to run the ball, and indeed it won't help the pass protection from Michael Penix, although some of that may be offset by the Colts losing defensive tackle DeForest Buckner to IR this week. The Colts O-line, which was battered last week by the Steelers, has to play better this week too against a pretty good Falcons pass rush. Having said that, the Colts have a good pass rushing unit too, and given the Falcons O-line issues, that they could be in Michael Penix's face all game here. With the Colts having been eighth best team for opposing wide receivers to face this season, you would normally say Drake London could be the offensive star for the Falcons here, but now he's going to come up against Sauce Gardner now that he's been signed and cleared the concussion protocol. So that's going to be a key matchup too. So maybe Kyle Pitts could be the one for the Falcons, as the Colts have been the fifth best team for opposing tight ends to face in 2025. For the Colts, as I say, they're likely to get downfield via the run, but can they turn that field position into touchdowns is going to be key in this game. And Jonathan Taylor may well have to do that on the ground. And can their pass rush get to Penix quickly enough to avoid him finding the likes of London and Pitts, and how much of an impact is Sauce Gardner going to have in that regard too? As with their game against New England last week, the Falcons have a chance of winning here, which many think they won't. They only lost by a point to New England, but I still see the Colts coming out on top. They've been an offensive juggernaut this season, and I don't think that's going to change here. Jonathan Taylor will likely lead them to success, but how Sauce Gardner does on D may be key here too. The Falcons have been tough on opposing tight ends, so maybe Tyler Warren might be one to be cautious about in fantasy terms for once this week. And similarly with Daniel Jones, who had his roughest game of the season last season. So the game plan may be a bit more conservative this week in terms of his play. So I'm going to take the Colts to win this by 27-20. So let's move on to the Sunday early games, starting with New York Giants at Chicago Bears. The Giants are seeing what they have to build on for 2026. That's basically what they've got to do for the rest of the season. They're out of contention. And that's going to be most notably how good Jackson Dart is as the future quarterback of this franchise. For the Bears, this is pretty much must win if they are to continue their improbable challenge for the NFC North and or a postseason berth. The Bears' strength is their offense. Their pass game is 12th ranked in the league, and their run game is ranked even higher at 5th. Defensively, they're a ball hawking pass unit, ranked near bottom of the league for yardage and touchdowns conceded, but best in the league for getting picks. And they have an average run defense, so they're not great defensively. But defensively, the Giants rank 30th against the run, and their pass defense will rely heavily on their pass rushing unit, as the secondary is ravaged by injury now. Running the ball has been the Giants' offensive strength. But without Cam Scatterbo, that was not the case against the 49ers last week. So that combined with their injuries on the O-line make me think they're not going to be able to run the ball well here. The stats rankings indicate that the Bears will be able to run the ball all day against the Giants and should have joy in the passing game too, so they'll be able to score plenty. And with the Giants being less likely to get their ground game going without Scatterbo, that means Jackson Dart's going to need to have a really big game if they're going to beat the Bears. Fantasy-wise, the Giants have conceded the third most yardage to opposing wide receivers, so look for Rome Odunze and possibly DJ Moore to benefit in that regard. And that could be good news for Caleb Williams owners in fantasy too. On the running side, DeAndre Swift is looking less and less likely to play in this game. So I was going to say he or Kyle Monangai could be the ones to get the touchdowns in this game. That might be Monangai now. The Giants have been tougher on opposing tight ends though, so Colston Loveland may find it tough to follow up on his massive game of last week. Against the Bullhawks in the Bears secondary, maybe Darius Slayton could be the big play guy for the Giants. I can see plenty of ways the Bears can get points on the board here, but that's going to be tougher for the Giants. So I'm going to take the Bears to win by 27-20. On to the Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. And similarly to the Bears, this is pretty much must win for the Bills, as they must beat teams that are out of contention this season if they are to overhaul the Patriots in the race for the AFC East and to make a run at the number one seeding in the AFC. The Bills have the best ground offense in the league. Their run defense has been better in the last couple of weeks, whilst they have one of the very best pass defenses in the league too. The Dolphins have a decent pass defense, but are 26th against the run. So this could be party time for James Cook and Josh Allen on the ground. Their offense is better passing than rushing. That's the Dolphins, which is bad news considering they're up against a tough Bills pass defense here. Fantasy-wise, as I say, James Cook and Josh Allen are the ones to be with because they're going to go plenty on the ground. In the passing game, tight ends have done better against the Dolphins than wide receivers. So Dalton Kincaid could be another to enjoy himself here, but maybe not Khalil Shakir. Whilst Tua could be set to struggle for the Dolphins against this strong Bills pass defense. So he could be in for a tough day here, I think. The Bills are just a way better team than the Dolphins are right now, and the matchups suit them too. So this should result in an easy Bills win by 31-20. On to the Baltimore Ravens at the Minnesota Vikings. These are two teams that need to put a long run of wins together to make a comeback that takes them to the postseason. The winner will continue in that vein. The loser will see that run halted and need to go again and quickly to stay in contention. Ignoring the 3 games Cooper Rush was involved in for the Ravens, they've averaged over 33 points a game, whilst the D has conceded just 13 points a game in its last 3 games. Now it's back and healthier. And similar to the Ravens, seasonal rankings for the Vikings are not really reflective, not an accurate representation of where they are. But it has to be said, J.J. McCarthy has done well against teams with suspect secondaries in the Lions and Bears, whilst he struggled against a strong pass defense of the Falcons. So maybe he's set to struggle against the Ravens too here, especially as they've added Drummond Jones to their ranks too this week. So will the Vikings be able to run the ball? Probably not against the Ravens D that has conceded 251 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns across its last 3 games. So don't expect them to do much on the ground either. But as long as you've got Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, you're always going to have some pass game, get some sort of pass game going. And that could be the case here. But they will struggle to score on the ground, and the Ravens are tough on opposing tight ends too. So don't expect much out of TJ Hockenson in this game. A key battle in this game will be the Vikings D-line that played so well against the Lions last week, against the Ravens O-line. And related to that, how mobile is Lamar Jackson at quarterback as he continues to recover from that hamstring injury? He played conservatively in that regard against the Dolphins, but now might be asked to do more against the Vikings. This is a tricky one to call, but my gut feeling is the Vikings will struggle offensively more than the Ravens will. So Baltimore get the win, but in a close one, 23-20. Right, Cleveland Browns at New York Jets. Here it is, this week's Who Cares Bowl. The Jets can run the ball, but little else. The Browns are good against the run, but little else. So therein lies the decisive factor. Jets run offense versus Browns run defense. I think the Browns will pretty much stop the Jets from getting in the end zone, but will have joy on the ground themselves, especially now the Jets have lost Quinnen Williams, having traded him away. So this will be enough for the Browns to win this game. Fantasy-wise, Quinshon Judkins and Jerry Jeudy and the Browns D might be good picks. Be less keen on Jets running back Breece Hall. So the Browns win this by 24-16. New England Patriots at Tampa Bay Buccaneers next. One of the games of the week here between teams contending to be the top seed from their respective conferences. The loser will fall back in that regard. The Patriots need to keep winning to stop Buffalo from stampeding all over them. The Patriots have a fine defense, particularly against the run, and Drake May has played exceptionally well behind a sometimes suspect O-line. So from a Bucks point of view, they will need to get their passing game going here, whilst their strong D-line has to dominate that Patriots O-line for them to win this game. In terms of getting the passing game going for the Bucks, without leading long-time stalwarts Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, the return of Luke Goedeke at tackle could be huge for the Bucks, making life a bit easier for Baker Mayfield to find the likes of Emeka Egbuka and the rest of his receivers. The Bucks D has been strong against the run and bend not breakish against the pass, so the red zone defense needs to prove itself here. They have conceded 6 touchdowns to opposing wide receivers this season and 4 to tight ends. If they can maintain that level against the Patriots, that could mean just one passing score for the Patriots, which would mean less for Baker Mayfield and the offense to do against that Patriots defense. The Patriots defense have conceded 10 touchdowns to opposing wide receivers, so that's potentially good news for the Bucks. And generally, it's been smaller slot types that have done well. So Tez Johnson and Sterling Shepard might fit that role in this game if the Patriots try to single out Egbuka in double coverage. In summary, neither team looks likely to run the ball well here, and I can see an edge for the Bucks in the passing game with Goedeke back. On that basis, I'm going to take the Bucks to win narrowly, as they've had a habit of doing. So I'm going to take them by 23 points to 20. New Orleans at Carolina Panthers. The Saints' evaluation of Tyler Shugg continues here, and the Panthers must win this if they're to keep within reach of the Bucks and in the NFC South. The Panthers possess a solid defense and are good at running the ball, but not so good in terms of red zone efficiency. They have kicked as many field goals as they have scored touchdowns this season, 14. The Saints cannot claim to be even average in any area. I can only see them struggling offensively against this Panthers D. But if the Panthers want a stress-free win here, they will need to find a way to turn field goals into touchdowns. The Saints have allowed plenty of yardage to opposing running backs this season, so Rico Dowdle, who's again battling injury this week, and Chuba Hubbard should get that done for the Panthers. And with the Saints having conceded 11 touchdowns to opposing wide receivers, I would have said Ted McMillan and Xavier Legette may be the ones to get the touchdowns they need here, although McMillan's struggling with a hamstring injury ahead of this game, so Legette could be an even bigger play. This might be a big week to consider Bryce Young fantasy-wise too. In terms of fantasy for the Saints, Juwan Johnson rather than Chris Olave might be the better fantasy receiving option, as tight ends have matched up well in that regard against the Panthers. With the Saints failing to top 14 points in 5 of their 9 games this season and only scored more than 20 points twice, the Panthers will probably only need 20 or more to win this game, and they will do enough to do just that and win this game by 23-17. Jacksonville Jaguars at Houston Texans. A win for the Jags here would possibly end the hopes of one of the teams chasing them in the AFC wildcard race, which is why the Texans simply have to win this game. The Texans' D has been great this season and has needed to be, and may need to be again here, especially as CJ Stroud fails to clear the concussion protocol this week. Even more so when you consider that Texans have one of the poorer run offenses in the league. Jacksonville are top 10 for run offense and defense, but outside the top 20 for pass offense and defense. So the likelihood of them doing much through the air against Houston is small, especially without Brian Thomas, on top of having lost Travis Hunter. Yes, they've got Jacoby Myers on board, but it's his first week, meaning they'll need to get their offense going via the ground. The Texans without Stroud may not have much joy on offense full stop, and be restricted to field goals as they were last week in losing to the Broncos. So Kaimi Fairbairn looks a good fantasy option kicker-wise. One potential relief point for the Texans' offense is that the Jacks have been 5th best for opposing tight ends to face, and bigger wide receivers like Nico Collins in the first meeting between the two teams and Devontae Adams have also had joy in the red zone. Trevor Lawrence is not one to start fantasy-wise for me this week. The Jags may get a score on, may well get a score on the ground, but they may not be enough for them to win this game. So I am going to take the Texans to field goal their way to success pretty much here, 19-16. So on to the Sunday late slot. Let's keep going. Arizona Cardinals at the Seattle Seahawks. The Cardinals came out of their bye week with a big win in Dallas to keep their slim chances of making the postseason alive. Now they need to do it again on the road in Seattle to keep those hopes, to give those hopes some realism. The Seahawks pretty much ended the Commanders' season in Week 9 and can do the same to the Cardinals whilst getting one of the 4 wins they need to ensure the postseason football, plus keep them top of the NFC West. The Cardinals have lost a bunch of close games and could easily be 5-3 rather than 3-5, and are clearly better than their record. Whereas I suspect the Seahawks may be flattered by their 6-2 record. The Seahawks have been really good against the run this season and in the passing game on offense, which they have largely to thank Jackson Smith-Njigba for. So adding Rashid Shaheed may take some of the load off Smith-Njigba for now, and they have a pretty good ground offense and decent pass defense too. So a team with some clear strengths and no great weaknesses will be a tough team to beat for the Cardinals. With Jacoby Brissett back at quarterback again, the Cardinals rank 20th for both pass and run offense and have an above average defense too in both regards. But they will be without both starting cornerbacks for this game, which could hurt them. Seattle should be able to run the ball better than the Cardinals in this game. Both teams have been stingy against opposing wide receivers, but like I say, those Cardinals secondary issues might be a concern here. Opposing tight ends have done okay against both teams. For the Cardinals to win this game, they have to keep Smith-Njigba to a season low yardage wise and keep the Seahawks running backs from getting into the end zone multiple times. That may allow Trey McBride to lead the offense to a win they badly need. In the first meeting between these two teams in Week 4, Smith-Njigba had his current season low of 90 yards, and the Cardinals only allowed 2 rushing touchdowns. However, 2 costly picks by Kyler Murray in that game meant they fell just short. And their second, like I say, I'm worried about those injuries in their secondary for this game. I would have gone for the Cardinals before they lost both corners, but I'm now going to say the Seahawks make the most of that weakened Arizona secondary to win this one by 27-23. On to the LA Rams at the San Francisco 49ers. Big game here. The NFC has arguably the 2 biggest games of the week in Week 10, and here's the first of them. The 49ers win at the Giants in Week 9 kept them within half a game of the Rams, and if they complete the sweep of LA here, they will move past them and secure the head-to-head tiebreak too. A win for the Rams will give them a 1.5 game buffer over the 49ers and keep them in at least a share of the NFC West and NFC Conference lead. Mac Jones will continue at quarterback with Brock Purdy still on the shelf, and he will not have Ricky Pearsall back for this game. So against a tough Rams defense, Christian McCaffrey will need to be at his supreme best for the 49ers to get scores in this game, especially as George Kittle may be the latest tight end to struggle against the Rams. Scoring is not a problem recently for Matt Stafford and the Rams, that's an understatement, particularly through the air, and they should be able to continue that good form against the 19th ranked 49ers pass defense. So with the Rams likely to score touchdowns and the 49ers and Christian McCaffrey possibly struggling to turn field goals into touchdowns, I see the Rams winning this one as the Rams D troubles Mac Jones all day. Eddie Pinheiro could be a good fantasy kicker to start this week, though, for the 49ers, but they're going to go down by 28 points to 19 to the Rams, is my prediction. On to the Detroit Lions at the Washington Commanders. The Commanders lost a game and key players in Week 9. The chance of making the postseason are nearly done as a result. A loss here would surely put out that flickering flame of hope. The Lions are a team in comparatively poor form on offense right now, and this presents an opportunity for them to get back on track. However, a loss here could leave them playing catch-up in the NFC wildcard race. If the offense gets back to being a top 10 unit, then their strong run defense will cover off their Achilles heel of pass defense in this game. And that run defense is good news matchup-wise against the Commanders' strength area, which has been their run offense. But I have to say, which makes another reason why Ja'Cory Cross-Emerick is not one to start fantasy-wise here. And without Jaden Daniels or Terry McLaurin, the Commanders' passing attack could also struggle, all of which indicates the Lions will win this game by a wide margin. Add to that the evidence that in fantasy terms opposing tight ends do well against the Commanders, even more so for wide receivers. So Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown could be set to lead an offensive landslide for the Lions here, as they did in Week 17 last season, which will make it a good day for Jared Goff too. Given the injuries and likely resultant demotivation of the Commanders, this looks like a great opportunity for the Lions to dominate on both offense and defense, and I think they will do just that here as they rout the Commanders 34-14. Right, let's get to Sunday Night Football. Pittsburgh Steelers at the LA Chargers. This is probably the biggest game in the AFC this week, as Justin Herbert behind a depleted O-line will try to find a way past the Steelers defense that rarely bared its teeth against the Colts in Week 9. That really bared its teeth, I should say. A win for the Steelers keeps them clear of the Ravens in the AFC North, whilst Chargers win would keep them in a postseason berth at the very least. The Steelers' defense was rightly criticised and then lauded for its performances overall this season, and in doing so, putting up a great showing against the Colts last week. But they need to repeat that performance here, and it's still the case that they've conceded 30 or more in half of their games this season. It is against the pass that they've struggled most, and that is where the Chargers' offensive strength lays, ranking 6th in the league, assuming they can put together some sort of O-line, that is. The Chargers are also really good against the pass, ranking 3rd in the league in that area. They're decent but not great for run offense and defense, so the fact they're so tough against the pass could be bad news for Aaron Rodgers fantasy owners. Matchup wise, this looks a really good fit for the Chargers, but the concerns over their O-line may negate all of that positivity. Left tackle Joe Alt is out for the season. Right tackle Bobby Hart is struggling with a groin injury, and right guard Mekhi Becton has missed multiple games, including last week's game. With such a depleted O-line, Justin Herbert needs to be at his very best self, or the defense will have to really shine for the Chargers to win this game. And it is the D that I can see doing that, as they've been very good against opposing tight ends, which the Steelers have really looked to utilise this season. The Steelers have not been great against opposing tight ends or wide receivers either, so a Rondé Gadsden could be a key weapon for Herbert in this game. Even at their best, the Steelers' D still allowed Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, and Josh Downs to combine for 287 yards and a touchdown last week, so there's plenty of hope for the Chargers' pass offense. So I'm going for the Chargers here with Justin Herbert, his trio of wide receivers and tight end Rondé Gadsden, plus Dicker the kicker being able to score the required points for them to win here by 23-20. So I'll call that for part 2. I will come back with a part 3, which will just cover off the Monday night game, but I'll briefly rip through the teams on bye week. Kansas City Chiefs. So Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid and co will be watching the Broncos, Chargers and Jag games with particular interest from their couches this week. The Cincinnati Bengals will be watching in hope that the Steelers, Ravens and Jags leave a door open for them rather than slamming it in their face. The Dallas Cowboys, the last chance saloon Cowboys, need the likes of the NFC North teams and the Carolina Panthers to buy them a drink in Week 10. Whilst we're on the Cowboys, how about adding Quinnen Williams on trade deadline day? Talk about shutting the gate after the horse has bolted. Why wait until we are just about out of contention for postseason before fixing the defence you broke in the first place? It may well help them next year, but not this. And the Tennessee Titans, well, this will be one of their better weeks of the season because they're not playing. So that wraps up part 2 of my Week 10 preview. Enjoy tomorrow's action.